There is a rule inside every intelligence agency on Earth that nobody writes down, but everybody understands. You do not fall in love with the target. You do not let the performance become real. You do not start caring whether the person across from you survives the operation, because the moment you do, you are no longer an asset. You are a liability. Sylvia Raphael broke that rule. Not in the way spy novels imagine it. Not in some dramatic moment of confession on a rooftop in a foreign city. She broke it slowly, invisibly, over years, in the most dangerous way possible. She broke it by building a life so convincing that even she could no longer tell where the cover ended and the truth began. By the time Mossad handed her the assignment that would define the rest of her life, she had already been someone else for 4 years. She had a name that was not hers, a nationality that was not hers, a career that existed only on paper, and a man in Paris who believed every single word of it. He was not her target. He was something worse. He was proof that she had become so good at pretending to be human that the pretending had started to feel real. That is where this story begins. Not with a kill order, not with a government directive. It begins with a woman who has been living inside a lie long enough that the lie has started living inside her. Before diving in, here is something for you, because you clearly cannot get enough of stories like these. We put together a limited edition ebook, Real Operations, where the cover and the person underneath it stopped being two separate things. Names built so completely they outlived the people who wore them. Cases that never made it past a closed file. Scan the QR code on the screen to grab your copy or click the link in the description. Then stay with us, because this story is just getting started. September 1972. The Munich Olympics. 11 Israeli athletes and coaches are taken hostage by the Palestinian group Black September during what is supposed to be a celebration of international peace. By the time the crisis ends, all 11 are dead. The images broadcast to nearly 1 billion people across the world. It is the first act of mass terrorism that plays out on live television, and it changes something fundamental inside the Israeli government. Prime Minister Golda Meir does not make a public speech about what comes next. She does not announce a policy or sign a document that anyone outside a very small room will ever see. What she does is authorize a campaign with no fixed end date, no public acknowledgement, and one purpose. Find the men who planned Munich. Find them wherever they are hiding, and make sure they never plan anything again. The operation will later become known as Wrath of God, although that name does not exist yet. What exists is a list that grows longer as intelligence comes in, and a mandate that is deliberately left open-ended. The targets are not soldiers in a war zone. They are men living in apartments in European cities, walking to cafes in Rome and Paris and Geneva, protected not by armies but by the simple fact that no European government wants to get involved in hunting them down. That protection is what makes Meir's decision feel necessary to the people who carry it out, and what makes it dangerous to everyone else. Because reaching those men means sending Israeli operatives into allied countries without permission, running surveillance and lethal operations on soil that belongs to democracies who have not been consulted and would not agree if they were. Every mission carries two risks that cannot both be eliminated. The first is the risk of inaction. If these men are left alone, the next Munich is not a question of whether but when. The planners are free, funded, and operating without consequence. Doing nothing is a decision with a body count that simply has not arrived yet. The second risk is the one that comes with acting. Every operation on foreign soil is a bet placed against the possibility of being wrong. Wrong about the target. Wrong about the location. Wrong about whether the person standing in the crosshairs is actually the person in the file. And if that bet loses, the cost does not land on a battlefield somewhere. It lands on a street corner in a country that considers Israel a friend. Balancing those two risks requires a very specific kind of operative. Someone who can disappear into a foreign country and stay there for years without raising a single question. someone who can build relationships, earn trust, move through social circles that would never knowingly allow an Israeli intelligence officer near them. Someone whose entire existence in that country is a performance so complete that the audience does not know they are watching one. Sylvia Raphael is exactly that person. Born in Graaff-Reinet, a small town in South Africa, in 1937. Her father is Jewish. Her mother is not. She is baptized and raised Dutch Reformed, which means she grows up looking, sounding, and believing like someone who has no connection to Israel whatsoever. She moves to Israel as a young woman, lives on a kibbutz, learns Hebrew and Arabic, and catches the attention of recruiters who are looking for precisely the kind of contradiction she represents. She is a woman who loves Israel enough to serve it, but who does not look, sound, or register as Israeli in any way that a border guard or a suspicious neighbor or a journalist boyfriend would ever notice. That is not a skill you train. That is something you either are or you are not. Mossad sends her to Canada to build her cover identity from scratch. She does not just receive a fake passport. She receives a fake life. The name they give her belongs to a real Canadian woman, a photojournalist named Patricia Roxborough. Raphael spends months absorbing the accent, the biography, the mannerisms, the small details that make a cover story survive not just a checkpoint, but a dinner conversation that lasts 3 hours. By the time she arrives in Paris, Patricia Roxborough is not a disguise she puts on in the morning and takes off at night. It is closer to a second personality that operates alongside the first one, sharing the same body, the same voice, the same face, but carrying a completely different history behind it. In Paris, she meets a young journalist named John Swain, a correspondent for Reuters who covers wars and has no reason to suspect that the woman sitting across from him at dinner is anything other than who she claims to be. They become involved. Not as part of an operation, not because a handler instructed her to get close to him for intelligence purposes. They become involved because she is living a life, and lives include relationships, and this one happens to be with a man who finds her funny and interesting and real. He will later say that he fell for her completely, that the relationship was genuine on his side, built on real time and real trust, and the ordinary, unremarkable belief that the person you are sleeping next to is telling you the truth about who they are. On her side, the situation is something no training manual covers. She is not seducing a target, she is not running an asset. She is simply existing inside a cover identity that has become comfortable enough to include love, and she has no protocol for what to do when the feelings attached to that cover start to feel indistinguishable from her own. That is the cost nobody has accounted for yet. Not the risk of getting caught, not the risk of a blown operation, the risk of what happens to a person who spends years being someone else and discovers that the someone else has started making decisions the real person never authorized. Somewhere above her, in channels she is not yet part of, a name is beginning to circulate with increasing urgency. Ali Hassan Salameh, the Red Prince. Believed to be the man who designed the Munich operation from the inside, one of the most protected and elusive figures in the Palestinian militant network. Every previous attempt to locate him precisely enough to act has failed. Every lead has gone cold or turned out to be less solid than it looked. A new lead is forming now. It has not been verified. It places a man matching his description not in Beirut, not in a capital city with established surveillance infrastructure, but in a small Norwegian town that has no reason to appear in any intelligence file anywhere in the world. The tip is thin. The pressure to act on it is not. Nobody has told Sylvia Raphael about it yet. The assumption built into the Wrath of God campaign from the beginning is that the intelligence would be good enough, that before anyone pulled a trigger, the target would be confirmed beyond reasonable doubt, that the system of verification sitting between a name on a list and a body on a street would hold, because it had to hold, because the entire moral architecture of the campaign depended on it. Lillehammer, Norway, breaks that assumption open. The tip arrives in the summer of 1973. An intelligence source, whose reliability has not been independently tested against this specific claim, reports that a man matching the description of Ali Hassan Salameh has been seen in this small Norwegian town. Lillehammer is not Beirut. It is not Damascus or Rome, or any of the cities where Palestinian operatives are known to move. It is a quiet town surrounded by farmland and lakes, the kind of place where a foreign face gets noticed by the neighbors before it gets noticed by any intelligence service. That should be the first warning. A man like Salameh, who has survived multiple assassination campaigns, who is known to travel with security, who understands that Mossad has been hunting him for nearly a year, would have very little reason to settle quietly into a town where he would stand out the moment he walked to the grocery store. But the pressure to find him has been building for months. He is the highest priority name on the list. Every other lead on his location has collapsed, and this one, thin as it is the only lead currently active. Mossad deploys a team to Lillehammer to confirm the identification, and, if confirmed, to carry out the elimination. The team is large. Estimates from later investigations put it at more than a dozen operatives spread across the town, which for a place this small is an extraordinary concentration of foreign intelligence officers in a space where they have no backup, no diplomatic cover, and no exit route that does not involve driving through open countryside to an airport. Sylvia Raphael is part of this team. She arrives carrying the Patricia Roxborough identity, the same one she has used for years in Paris, the same one that has allowed her to maintain a relationship with a man who has no idea what she actually does when she disappears. That identity is about to be placed inside an operation where the margin for error is close to zero, in a country that has not been told any of this is happening. Here is the internal fracture that nobody talks about on the record, but that every account of this operation describes in different ways. There are members of the team who are not confident in the identification. The man they are surveilling in Lillehammer does not match the profile of a senior Palestinian militant in ways that should matter. He lives quietly. He has a regular job. He walks home from the public swimming pool in the evening with his wife. His wife is visibly pregnant. None of that is conclusive. Salameh is known to be sophisticated about his cover. A man trying to disappear might look exactly like a man who has nothing to hide, but the doubts are real, and they exist inside the team before the operation moves to its final phase. The question of whether to abort surfaces. Not formally, not as a recorded discussion with minutes and signatures, but in the way these things happen inside field teams operating under pressure. Someone raises the concern. Someone else points out that headquarters has authorized the operation based on the intelligence available. Someone else notes that if this is Salameh and they let him walk, the next time they find him might be after the next attack. The argument for proceeding is not that the identification is certain. The argument for proceeding is that the cost of being wrong about inaction is worse than the cost of being wrong about action. That calculation is not made on paper. It is made by people standing in a foreign country, far from the chain of command, running out of time to make a decision that cannot be undone. Nobody overrules the doubts with evidence. The doubts are overruled by momentum. The team surveils the man for several days. They follow his routines. They note when he leaves the house where he goes, what time he returns. They watch him walk with his wife. They watch him go to work. Everything about his life looks ordinary, and that ordinariness is interpreted in two opposite ways by two parts of the same team. To some, it looks like deep cover. To others, it looks like an ordinary life, because that is what it is. On July 20th, 1973, the team moves. The man is followed as he walks home from the Lillehammer swimming pool with his pregnant wife. Two operatives approach on foot. 14 shots are fired. The man falls in the street. His name is Ahmed Bouchiki. He is a Moroccan-born waiter who has lived in Norway for years. He has no connection to Black September. He has no connection to the Palestinian liberation movement in any form. He has never met Ali Hassan Salameh. He has never been to Munich. He is not the man in the file. His pregnant wife is standing next to him when he dies. The team does not learn immediately that the identification is wrong. What they learn immediately is that Lillehammer is not the kind of town where 14 gunshots go unnoticed. Norwegian police respond faster than the team's exit plan accounts for. Within hours, the first arrests begin. Within days, 6 members of the team are in custody, including Sylvia Raphael. She is arrested carrying identification in the name of Patricia Roxborough, the cover identity she has maintained for years, the one that kept her invisible in Paris, the one that allowed her to hold a relationship together without ever being questioned, is now logged in a Norwegian police file connected to the murder of a civilian on Norwegian soil. 4 years of building a second life, and it ends in a holding cell in a country she was never supposed to be noticed in. Here is the part that does not fit cleanly into the version of this story that either side wants to tell. If you stand inside the logic that created Operation Wrath of God, the Lillehammer disaster does not invalidate the campaign. It invalidates this specific mission. The broader campaign, taken as a whole, achieves what it sets out to achieve. Over the months and years that follow, most of the men directly connected to the planning and financing of the Munich massacre are found and killed or driven so far underground that they are no longer operationally effective. Black September's ability to strike in Europe is substantially degraded. The deterrent message that Golda Meir authorized is, by most intelligence assessments, received. The campaign works. This operation, inside that campaign, kills an innocent man. Those two facts do not cancel each other out. They do not resolve into a lesson or a net calculation that tells you whether the whole thing was worth it. They sit next to each other permanently, and the space between them is where the actual moral weight of this story lives. And inside that space there is a smaller, more personal collapse that matters in a different way. Sylvia Raphael's arrest does not just end her mission. It ends Patricia Roxborough, the identity she built over years, the accent she trained in Canada, the biography she memorized until it felt like memory rather than fiction, the relationship she maintained with a journalist who trusted her completely. All of it is now public record attached to an assassination that hit the wrong person. John Swain, working as a war correspondent in Vietnam, sees the story come across the Reuters wire. The woman he knew as Patricia, the woman he had been involved with, the woman he believed was a Canadian photographer with an interesting life and no particular secrets, has been arrested in Norway as part of a Mossad hit squad that murdered a civilian. He has no warning, no phone call, no letter. No chance to ask her whether any of it was real before the answer becomes irrelevant, because the person he thought he knew has turned out to be a construction, and the construction has just been disassembled in public by the Norwegian criminal justice system. The operation that was supposed to eliminate one of the most dangerous men connected to Munich has instead killed a waiter, exposed a team of operatives who took years to build, humiliated Mossad in front of an allied government, and handed every critic of Israel's covert campaign exactly the evidence they needed to argue that the whole enterprise had gone too far. And Ali Hassan Salama, the actual target, the man the entire Lillehammer operation was designed to reach, is alive. He is in Beirut. He has not been to Norway. He will remain alive and operational for 6 more years, continuing to serve as one of Yasser Arafat's most trusted lieutenants, until a completely separate operation finally reaches him in 1979. The question that hangs over everything now is not whether the Lillehammer team made a mistake. The mistake is obvious. The question is whether the system that produced the mistake, the pressure, the momentum, the chain of decisions that turned a thin tip into 14 bullets fired at a stranger, is the same system that made the rest of the campaign possible. Whether you can build a machine that hunts this effectively without accepting that sometimes it will hunt the wrong person. Nobody inside the operation has answered that question yet. Nobody outside it has either. The team arrives in Lillehammer in pieces across several days in mid-July 1973. They do not come as a single group. They come in pairs and alone, checking into different hotels, renting separate cars, establishing separate routines so that no pattern connects them to each other in the eyes of anyone watching. The problem is that in a town this size, there is almost nobody watching. Lillehammer does not have a counterintelligence presence. It barely has a reason for a foreign visitor to stay more than a night or two. Every extra day an operative lingers is another day the hotel staff, the shopkeepers, the neighbors have to notice a face that does not belong. Sylvia Raphael checks in under the Roxborough name. She has used it so many times in so many countries that it is not a performance anymore. She signs the register the way a person signs their own name, without thinking, without the micro-pause that comes from writing something unfamiliar. That ease is the product of years of practice. It is also the thing that will eventually destroy her, because when Norwegian police start pulling hotel records after the operation collapses, the name Patricia Roxborough will be sitting there, legible, traceable, connected to a face that multiple witnesses will remember, but that is later. Right now, the team has one job: find the man the tip describes, confirm he is Ali Hassan Salama, and act. They find a man. He is of Middle Eastern or North African appearance. He lives in a modest apartment. He has a job. He keeps regular hours. He matches the general physical description in the file, which is to say he is roughly the right age, roughly the right build, and roughly the right complexion. In a city like Beirut or Paris, where Mossad has networks, local contacts, and multiple ways to cross-reference an identification, roughly the right everything would not be enough. In Lillehammer, roughly the right everything is all they have. The first days of surveillance produce nothing that confirms and nothing that rules out. The man does not meet with anyone who appears connected to Palestinian organizations. He does not make phone calls that suggest operational security. He does not behave like a man who knows he is being hunted. He goes to work. He comes home. He walks to the swimming pool with his wife. This is the false start that should have ended the operation before it began. The team is looking for a senior militant who orchestrated the murder of 11 people in front of the entire world. A man known to travel with protection. A man whose operational sophistication has kept him alive through nearly a year of active Mossad pursuit. The man they are watching takes the same route to the same pool at the same time every evening, with no variation, no counter-surveillance, no sign that he has ever considered the possibility that someone might be following him. There are two ways to read that. One reading says he is so deep in cover that he has eliminated every visible sign of the life he actually leads. The other reading says he is not in cover at all, because there is nothing to cover. He is exactly what he appears to be, a man with a simple life in a small town. The team splits on this reading. The operatives closer to the surveillance are the ones with the most doubt. They are the ones watching him every day, seeing the way he interacts with his wife, the way he moves through the town without any of the small habits that a trained operative develops without meaning to. The checking of mirrors, the casual glance over the shoulder, the slight change of route that tests whether anyone follows the adjustment. He does none of it. The operatives further from the surveillance, the ones receiving reports rather than making observations, read the same information differently. To them, the absence of tradecraft is itself a sign of sophistication. A man this careful would know how to look like he has nothing to hide. The fact that he appears ordinary is evidence that his cover is working. This is the incorrect assumption playing out in real time. The absence of evidence is being treated as evidence of concealment, which means no amount of ordinary behavior can disqualify the target. The conclusion has been decided before the observation. The observation is being filtered to fit. There is a moment in the days before the operation goes final when the doubt comes close enough to the surface to change things. One account places it as a conversation between team members about whether the target's pregnant wife is consistent with Salome's known personal situation. Another places it as a broader concern about whether the tip that brought them here has been verified through any channel other than the original source. The specifics vary depending on who reconstructed the events afterward and how much they were willing to say. What matters is that the doubt reaches the level where someone considers pulling back. Not canceling the mission permanently, just pausing, waiting for a second source, requesting additional confirmation from headquarters before the team commits to something that cannot be taken back. That pause does not happen. The near abort fails for reasons that have less to do with evidence than with the weight of everything that has already been invested. The team has been deployed. The surveillance is in place. Headquarters has authorized the operation. The target has been located, or at least a man who looks enough like the target to satisfy the file. Pulling back now means admitting that the intelligence is not strong enough, which means the entire deployment was premature, which means someone higher up made a mistake in sending them here. Nobody wants to be the person who says that out loud. So the operation proceeds. July 20th, evening. The man finishes his swim and walks out of the Lillehammer pool with his wife beside him. The street is quiet. The light is the long pale light of a Scandinavian summer, the kind that makes everything feel exposed and unhurried at the same time. He is not rushing. He has no reason to rush. The team is in position. 2 operatives on foot. Support vehicles nearby. The plan is close range and fast. There is no window for hesitation once it starts. There is a moment just before it begins, a gap of seconds that exists in every operation like this, where the people about to act are standing inside the last version of the world where this has not happened yet. The man is still walking. His wife is still beside him. The child she is carrying has not yet lost a father. And then it starts. The 2 operatives close the distance. 14 rounds are fired. The man falls on the street in front of his wife. The false release moment comes immediately after. In the seconds following the shooting, before the team begins its withdrawal, there is a brief window where the operation feels like it has worked. The target is down. The team is moving. The exit plan is activating. For a span of time that might last 30 seconds or might last 2 minutes, the people involved believe they have just killed Ali Hassan Salama, the man who planned Munich, the highest priority target on the list. That belief is the last clean thing any of them will feel about this night. The first sign that something is wrong is not a piece of intelligence or corrected identification. It is the town itself. Lillehammer reacts the way a small town reacts to a shooting on a residential street. Lights come on, doors open, people come outside, someone calls the police. In a city, the team might disappear into traffic, into crowds, into the anonymous mass of people who do not notice each other. In Lillehammer, there is no crowd. There is no traffic. There are neighbors who saw the cars, who noticed the unfamiliar faces days ago, who can describe exactly which direction the vehicles went. Norwegian police begin stopping cars within the hour. The exit routes the team planned are the same roads every car in town uses, because there are only a few of them. There is nowhere to disappear to that does not involve driving past someone who is already looking. The operation has not just failed. It has failed in a way that is about to peel open every layer of cover the team spent years building. Starting with the woman who signed a hotel register in a name that was never hers, and believed, until tonight, that it always would be. The unraveling begins before the team is out of the town. 2 operatives, the ones furthest from the shooting itself, are stopped at a routine police checkpoint on the road leading out of Lillehammer within hours of the killing. They are not hardened field agents with years of interrogation resistance training. They are support staff, logistics, and transport. The kind of people a large team needs, but who are not built for the pressure of sitting across from a detective in a foreign police station while a murder investigation takes shape around them. They crack. Not immediately, but fast enough that Norwegian police have a working picture of the operation before the sun comes up. Names, hotel registrations, rental car records. The connections between people who checked into separate hotels and pretended not to know each other start surfacing one by one, pulled together by a small-town police force that has never dealt with anything like this, and is handling it with the straightforward competence of investigators who do not know they are supposed to be afraid of the people they are questioning. Sylvia Raphael is arrested within days. The Patricia Roxborough identity, the one she built in Canada, the one she carried across borders for 4 years, the one she used to hold a life together in Paris, is now entered into Norwegian criminal records as an alias used by a member of a foreign assassination team that killed the wrong man. Every hotel she stayed in, every border she crossed, Every interaction she had under that name is now potentially traceable by any intelligence service that cares to look. The cover is not blown in the way operatives usually fear, where a single mission goes wrong and a single identity has to be burned. It is blown in the way that damages everything connected to it. Because Roxborough is not just a name on a passport. It is the name attached to years of relationships, contacts, movements, and operational history across multiple countries. Every person who ever trusted Patricia Roxborough. Every source who ever spoke to her believing she was a journalist. Every contact she cultivated in service of operations that have nothing to do with Lillehammer is now potentially compromised. John Swain is one of those people, although he is not a source and never was. He is a man who had a relationship with a woman who turned out to be a foreign intelligence operative. And he learns this not from her, not from a quiet conversation or a letter, but from a wire report that crosses his desk in Saigon while he is covering a war. The woman he knew is suddenly a stranger described in a news dispatch, connected to the killing of a civilian he has never heard of in a country she never mentioned visiting. He will later describe the experience as flabbergasting. That word does not carry the weight of what it actually means. It means that every memory he has of her, every conversation, every trip they planned, every time she disappeared and came back with an explanation that satisfied him because he had no reason to doubt it, all of it has to be reprocessed through the understanding that none of it was what he thought it was. Not the name, not the nationality, not the reason she was in Paris. The Norwegian trial moves quickly by the standards of espionage cases. Raphael and the other captured operatives are charged and convicted. She receives a sentence of 5.5 years. She serves roughly 18 months before being released, a reduction that suggests diplomatic pressure operating behind the surface of the legal process, although the specifics of that pressure have never been fully documented. During her time in custody, she is described by those who interacted with her as composed, even dry. She reportedly joked that she had gone from 007 to 005.5. That kind of composure is either genuine detachment or the last functioning layer of a cover identity that has nothing left to protect. There is no public record of her expressing remorse for the killing of Ahmed Bouchiki, and there is no public record of her defending it either. What survives is closer to silence than to any position. The institutional cost lands on Mossad in layers. The first layer is operational. 6 operatives exposed, their identities now in the hands of a NATO-allied government's intelligence service. Every operation those 6 people were connected to, past or future, has to be reassessed for compromise. Networks built over years have to be assumed penetrated. The damage is not limited to the people who were caught. It extends to everyone they ever worked with. Everyone who ever shared a safe house or a communication channel or a contact list with them. The second layer is diplomatic. Norway is not an adversary. It is not a country Israel can afford to antagonize without consequence. The killing of an innocent man on Norwegian soil by Israeli operatives forces a confrontation that neither government wants, and the resolution of that confrontation involves concessions that are never fully made public. Israel does not formally acknowledge Mossad's role in the Lillehammer operation for decades. When compensation is eventually provided to Bouchiki's family, it comes without an admission of responsibility attached to it. The third layer is strategic, and it is the one that takes the longest to measure. Ali Hassan Salameh, the man the entire operation was supposed to reach, is untouched. He is alive in Beirut. He knows now, with certainty, that Mossad is hunting him and that the hunt has produced a catastrophic failure. That knowledge makes him harder to reach, not easier. Every future attempt to locate and eliminate him will have to account for the fact that he watched his enemies kill the wrong man and get caught doing it. He understands exactly how far they are willing to go, and exactly how badly they can get it wrong. He will not be killed for another 6 years. When it finally happens in January 1979, it is a car bomb in Beirut, a completely separate operation with a completely separate team run under completely different conditions. The Lillehammer failure does not prevent his eventual death, but it delays it by half a decade, during which he continues to operate, continues to influence Palestinian strategy, and continues to serve as one of the most important figures in Yasser Arafat's inner circle. The Bouchiki family never recovers from the killing. His wife raises their child without him. The family has said publicly, years later, that the compensation did not undo anything, and that they never stopped living inside the consequences of a decision that was made by people who did not know who he was and did not take the time to find out. Sylvia Raphael returns to some version of a normal life after her release. She does not go back to fieldwork. She does not give interviews that clarify what she felt or what she knew, or whether she carried the weight of Lillehammer differently than the institution that sent her there. What is known is that the woman who spent 4 years being someone else lost both versions of herself on the same night. Patricia Roxborough was destroyed by the arrest, and whoever Sylvia Raphael was before she became Roxborough had been gone for a long time already. That is the cost that no operational review captures. Not the blown cover, not the diplomatic fallout, not the 6 years Salame continued to operate. The cost is what happens to a person who is asked to become someone else completely enough to fool the people closest to her, and then is asked to do things, under that second name, that the second name was never built to survive. This operation did not exist in isolation. It came out of a doctrine that had been developing inside Israeli intelligence for years, a method of embedding agents so deeply into false lives that they could operate for decades without detection. The cases that built that doctrine, the ones that worked and the ones that broke the people who carried them out, are not in any public record, but some of them are in the ebook we put together, linked in the description below. It covers the operations, the methods, and the human cost of deep cover work that most documentaries never get to, drawn from cases that span 3 decades of Israeli intelligence history. The link is in the description. If this story changed the way you think about what intelligence work actually costs, leave a comment and tell us which part stayed with you. And if you are not subscribed yet, now is a good time.